D, wait for it, delightful.
Check out the name tag. You're in my world now, Grandma.
What's up, nerds? So, for this episode, I am going to give my take on how the X-Men can join the MCU. Now, Kevin Feige has said that the X-Men will not be joining the MCU for a very long time, and he has a 5-year plan for the next phase of Marvel movies. And of course, I personally put my trust in Kevin Feige. I think he's done a great job so far, so I think that moving forward, whatever his plan is, I think that it'll be good. It'll be good. So, especially when it comes to the mutants and so forth. Now, a lot of people I've seen online is saying, how can the mutants slash X-Men join the MCU when their biggest story plot is that the fact that everyone else, humans, do not like them because of their superpowers, and everybody in the MCU loves the Avengers because of their superpowers. It's kind of like a, I hate you, but I love these guys. And one way you get around that, I'm seeing a lot of this online, is the multiverse that they're introducing into Spider-Man Far From Home. And I think they're going to do that through the whole, the dimensional travel that Thanos and Ant-Man and all the Avengers did in Endgame. They're going to introduce, that's how they get through everything, is through that interdimensional travel. But I personally don't like that idea. I do like the idea of a multiverse. If they introduced 1602, I would freak out because that's like one of my favorites. But as far as that goes, I would like the X-Men to be on Earth 616, which is our Earth right now. So how do we introduce them into this MCU? And that is, and still have everybody hate them, which is their plot point, and that is, mutants are born with their powers, and the Avengers are not. I mean, if you look at all the Avengers, they're given their powers, or they don't have powers, like Black Widow and Hawkeye. But for instance, the Hulk, he's given his powers. I mean, granted, it's through an accident, but he's given his powers. Captain America, he's given his powers through the super soldier serum. And Iron Man, he made his suit, so he gave himself those powers. And you can go through, you could say Scarlet Witch, Vision, Captain Marvel, Doctor Strange. Even though everybody doesn't know everything about them, they were all given their powers. They weren't born with them like the X-Men are. So that's kind of how I personally think they could get around it. That's why everybody hates the mutants, because they're born with their powers. They don't hate the Avengers because the Avengers were given their powers. Now, to start this off, and I did a fan casting of the X-Men, you can check that out here, I explained that I would like it if they didn't start off with the original X-Men team, and that includes Cyclops, Beast, Angel, Jean Grey, and Iceman. Those are not going to be the original team, and I explained that in the video. We'll cast the second round of X-Men for this team, for the X-Men that will be introduced. And how they do that is, Professor Xavier has always been around this whole time, and he was planning on introducing the X-Men and mutants to the world. But when he was planning on doing that, something like a big event like New York happened, and the Chitauri attacked, and he wasn't able to do that. So what he was going to do then was, the Chitauri, their technology then creates the living island. I think, oh gosh, I cannot remember the name of it. I'll have to, man, I didn't write it down in my notes. Bad on me for not writing down my notes. But then that Chitauri technology creates the living island, Kahlua or whatever it's called. I don't know. That's not the name of it, though. And the X-Men then go off to destroy it, and that's how Professor Xavier's all like, "Oh, this is how we're gonna do. We're gonna fight off this island. We'll introduce the X-Men to the world, and they'll love mutants like they love the Avengers." But what happens is, like in the comic books, the original team gets captured. Except for Cyclops, he comes back and he's like, "Hey, we need to go save my teammates." And Professor Xavier is like, "You're right, we need to go save our teammates." And they would explain all of this in the X-Men film. But how we would introduce these is we would fit them in one at a time through cameos and through small scenes in other movies. For instance, okay, and they would we do this individually. Now, not all of them have to do that, and I'll explain here. For instance, the biggest one and the most obvious one is Storm. How do you introduce Storm? In Black Panther 2. Now, I've been saying this ever since forever, that Storm should be in Black Panther 2. It just makes the most sense, okay? She's African, she's in Africa during the comic books, she marries T'Challa at one point in time, they get married in the comic books, they have a kid, they get divorced, all that good stuff. So introduce her into the Black Panther 2 movie, and, you know, and she can have her powers, and she can even say, I'm a mutant, okay? Another one you could introduce is Colossus. Now, Colossus is Russian, and who else is Russian on the team? Black Widow. And I know what you're saying, Black Widow died, but if you look at these pictures from the on-set, you notice that Black Widow's ponytail is in the same style as it was in Endgame. Now, you could say, now I think that this movie is taking place sometime between Infinity War and Endgame, or it takes place after Endgame and Natasha is really not dead, that Bruce Banner really did bring her back, but he lied because he didn't, you know, want to get her all involved, and he didn't know somehow that she was alive, yada yada yada, but she's in hiding and she doesn't. So you introduce Colossus because she's Russian, he's Russian. I mean, you don't have to do it through a big thing, you don't have to show his metal skin, just introduce the character through a cameo or like a small scene or an end credit scene. They could totally start this phase 4 with end credit scenes introducing the X-Men. So for the next one that you could do is Sunfire. Now in my video I say you can make it male or female Sunfire because they've been both in the comic books, but you introduce that through Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is, you know, he is an Asian character that you introduce an all-Asian cast, and what better way to introduce Shang-Chi introduce Sunfire, who is Asian, in that movie. I mean, you've already got the full Asian cast, you could do again at the end with him. You don't have to show him in costume, you can show his flame powers and everything for one scene, anything that goes along with that, and that's how you do it. Now, you don't have to introduce every single character from this second wave of mutants. You don't, like, Nightcrawler, Banshee, and Thunderbird. You can save those for the actual X-Men movie. But the last one that you absolutely have to have in there, and I haven't figured out how you would introduce him, but you could do it through anything, and that is Wolverine. He's such an iconic character in the comic books and in this past franchise that you have to have him in an introduction to him in your movie, so that way he's set up for the X-Men movie. Then again, you've introduced, you know, you've introduced certain mutants and X-Men into these movies one at a time, and then when we get to the X-Men movie, you don't have to go through every single solitary mutant and explain their backstory. And some of these you don't even have to explain their backstory. So, tell me, what do you guys think about my idea of how to add the mutants and the X-Men to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Do you think it's a bad idea? Is there anything you can add on to it? Or would you like them to be a part of the multiverse and be from another Earth? Go ahead and put your comments in that section down below. I would love to hear your guys' ideas. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. I won't mind. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Alright, bye!